It was the greatest jam ever witnessed on any similar occasion, one newspaper correspondent observed. The people of Washington, it seemed, had somehow agreed for a few hours to forget their desperate situation and celebrate a new beginning. Absent the holiday exuberance, however, a cool assessment of the country's present circumstances would show that the American Republic was in grave danger. The hope that secession fever would burn itself out was being trampled in the rush to battle stations. Strategies for reviving pro-Union sentiments in the South were stymied by the sheer size of the breakaway Confederate States of America, which covered an expanse larger than the entire European territory conquered by Napoleon. A pocket of Loyalists in Western Virginia had been liberated the previous summer by Union troops marching eastward from Ohio, but the pro-Union population of the more remote Appalachian Mountains in eastern Tennessee and western North Carolina was scarcely reachable down long dirt roads through hostile territory. Elsewhere in Dixie, what Union sentiment survived was scattered and cowed. The Confederacy was in the process of mobilizing a greater percentage of its population as soldiers than any European power had ever achieved. Those troops were led by some of the most experienced military men on the North American continent, starting with Confederate President Jefferson Davis, a West Point graduate, combat veteran, and former U.S. Secretary of War. The Confederacy also wielded a powerful economic weapon, near total control of the global cotton supply, at a time when textiles were driving the Industrial Revolution and cotton was perhaps the world's most important commodity. The cotton embargo enforced by rebel leaders was a gun to the heads of the British and French governments, putting tremendous pressure on them to support Southern independence. Pressure aside, the idea that the Confederacy, now a powerful country in its own right, could be tamed and forced back into the Union by an army of raw volunteers led by an unschooled frontier lawyer as commander-in-chief, struck most European observers as far-fetched, even preposterous. It is in the highest degree likely that the North will not be able to subdue the South. The British Prime Minister, Lord Palmerston, counseled his Foreign Office. Such skepticism was reinforced by conditions on the ground. Rebel soldiers menaced Washington from nearby Manassas, Virginia, where they had routed a Union army a few months earlier. Jefferson Davis was weighing a campaign into Maryland to stir up secessionists and cut off the capital from the north. Confederate artillery commanded the Potomac River above and below the capital, effectively sealing the waterway. No one in civilian authority had any detailed knowledge of the plans being prepared by the Union's top general, George B. McClellan. Worse, McClellan was ill and rumored to be dying. The federal government, meanwhile, appeared overwhelmed. The president was increasingly seen as feckless and inadequate. Congress was in the hands of a political party that had never governed before. The Treasury Department was broke, yet federal spending was multiplying as never before. In 1862, the government would spend 6 times as much as in 1861. Northern banks, fearing a panic by demoralized investors, had closed their exchange windows, refusing to redeem paper money with gold or silver. The War Department was a corrupt shambles, its chief on the verge of being fired. Despairing State Department envoys to Britain and France believed that the great powers were aligned against their besieged government. It appeared to be only a matter of time before Europe would intervene to settle the conflict in favor of the Confederacy. A rebel diplomat crowed from London, "At present there is a probability that our recognition by Her Britannic Majesty's government will not be much longer delayed." President Davis considered European intervention almost inevitable, and he shaped his strategies around that confidence. To the east of the White House, at the far end of that lone paved avenue, stood the unfinished U.S. Capitol, darkly crowned by the cast-iron skeleton of an enormous dome. To the south of the mansion, across a fetid bog, rose the sad stump of the Washington Monument, abandoned for lack of funds. These uncompleted projects were silent reminders that great things had been planned in this city, and large dreams dreamt. The boldest of all the American dreams was the vision of a great new nation that would span